Okay, folks, sorry about that. Having tremendous technical difficulties this morning. My camera shut off again, so we're still in Note 3. I believe we might be on video 4 at this point, trying to get through this. Hopefully, the powers that be in the electronic world will let me get through this and finish up all of Note 4 in this last video. We had gotten as far as on the second page going through agent liability for contracts, and we're now moving down into an agent's liability for torts and crimes. And I believe I was cut off right at the point when I was making a very dramatic statement about the fact that as an agent, you are always responsible for your own torts and you are responsible for your own crimes. You are primarily responsible. Just because you are working for somebody else and can say, well, I did this because the principal told me, or the principal wanted me to do that, or I thought the principal wanted me to do that, does not exclude you from criminal liability, nor does it exclude you from civil liability for torts or for contract damages necessarily. So it is very important to realize what the limits of an agent's authority are. They can never have authority to commit crimes or authority to be authorized to commit tortious activity that would injure a third party, and they will not be able to seek indemnification from the principal for those things necessarily. Now, having said that, the theory of respondeat superior vicarious liability says that if the agent committed a crime or committed a tort, a negligence action, while making money for the principal may be responsible for that, as it was the principal's activity that caused the injury. This is a little less clear with crimes, and the ancient rule had been that a principal was not responsible for the crime of an agent because the principal had no legal authority to require an agent to commit a crime. But that has begun to change, and certainly with tortious acts, and that had always been the rule going back to Roman times, that the employer, the principal, could be held responsible for the actions of their employees or agents, and very often that applied even to intentional torts. Now, torts are wrongs committed against a third party for which they can obtain money damages. They fall into two large categories. One is unintentional, which would be called negligence. And when we think of car accident cases, slip and fall cases, those are the normal types of things that would fall under unintentional torts. The tortfeasor, or the person committing the tort, doesn't mean to create the damage, but because they were not necessarily careful, the damage has occurred, and now we're going to hold them responsible. Intentional torts are ones like battery and assault, where you deliberately injure someone. You wrongfully take possession of someone else's property is another intentional tort. Under the old common law, principals were normally not held responsible for the intentional torts of their agents. However, that has begun to change, and in many situations now, principals and employers can be held responsible even for the intentional torts, and certainly for the negligent torts of the people working under them and making money for them. If the principal's conduct is tortious, the principal employs a 16-year-old, and the principal knows this person only got their driver's license last week. They've heard horror stories about how bad a driver the person is, but they need something delivered quickly, and they hand this 16-year-old with a bad reputation for driving the keys and says, take the delivery truck across town and deliver this. And the 16-year-old gets into a car accident. In that situation, it might not even be vicarious liability. In that situation, a good attorney, if he had or she had the facts at their hands, they would be able to show that the principal created the negligence. The principal was negligent because they knew they should have known better than to put this 16-year-old behind the wheel of a truck and send them barreling off through town. And because they did so, we could find them primarily liable and not even have to worry about the idea, the concept of vicarious liability existing. In that situation, the principal, as well as the agent, would be primarily liable, directly liable for damages. All right? If the principal authorizes negligence, the principal says to the agent, this order is late, hurry up and get the pizza there as fast as you can, I don't care how fast you drive. We lawyers love the commercials about delivering pizzas within 15 minutes, which, if you notice, have pretty much disappeared from the web and from television, from cable TV, because they're almost begging for liability by saying we're putting a bunch of teenagers in cars running around town to get you your $7 pizza as quickly as you can. We're going to put people in jeopardy for millions of dollars of personal injury damages and hundreds of thousands of dollars of property damages so you can get your $7 pizza in 15 minutes while it's still lukewarm. If the principal authorizes negligence or encourages a negligence, then again, the principal could be found primarily liable. They don't have to be vicariously liable. They themselves are liable for creating this situation. They themselves are negligent for encouraging the negligence of their employee or their agent. Misrepresentation is another situation where agency comes into play. And normally the rule is that in misrepresentation is the idea that you state incorrect facts, you give incorrect information, you fail to disclose important information in a business transaction or business dealing. Misrepresentation is actionable under law and contract law. We talk about it a lot. It becomes a way to claim damages. It becomes a way sometimes to avoid the whole contract and get out of it. It can be actionable even after the contract is supposedly totally completed and done. If you find there was misrepresentation along the way, sometimes you can even go backwards in time and sue and get the contract undone. So this is a very big area, and basically the principal is held responsible for anything that the agent says. It is the duty of the principals of the world to instruct their agents and to demand from their agents that they go out and that they fairly represent situations and they do not give false information, false facts, that they do not withhold information from the third parties that we're dealing with as customers or clients. And in a situation where an agent does that, that will almost always be attributed back to the principal, and the principal will ultimately be found responsible. Now, we lawyers like the idea of vicarious liability, and we work very hard to keep it alive because most of the agents of the world are in an employee type situation. They're not independently well heeled. They don't have a lot of money. And in litigation, particularly where there are significant damages or contract losses, personal injuries, we're looking to see who has the best ability to pay. We're looking for somebody called the deep pocket. And usually the deep pocket is not in the agent or the employee. The deep pocket is with the corporation or the principal for whom they work. So the idea of vicarious liability is a very strong, constantly litigated one in our society, and it is something that the lawyers depend upon. All right. Respondeat superior means let the principal answer or respond for the actions of their employees. Vicarious liability means that even if the principal is not at all negligent, they can be held responsible for the negligence of their agent employee. There's